Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of How to Become a Doctor. If you're interested in optometry, then this episode is for you. We have a special guest from Southern College of Optometry, and I'll let Mr. Bowen introduce her.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We're excited today to feature optometry as our topic today for our podcast. And our guest today is from the Southern College of Optometry in Memphis. So we're happy to welcome Rebecca Smetana from SEO, and she's going to talk a little bit about their school and just optometry in general. And so we hope to leave some time for questions, but if during the podcast you want to type a question in the chat box, we'll make sure that Rebecca sees that and can answer it. So Rebecca, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and explain a little bit about what you do there and say hello to everybody.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here. Always happy and excited to talk about SEO and about optometry. And so, yeah, my name is Rebecca. I'm the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Services here at SEO, and we're a relatively small school. So in our department, we all wear a few hats, which makes it fun for me. I get to interact with prospective students all over the country, doing some recruiting, sharing all that there is to know about SEO's admissions process, to share more about the profession of optometry, and hopefully get people excited about the opportunity. And then I work with students who are applying, so going through the whole nitty-gritty process of submitting the application, going through the interviews. I do participate in the interview and admissions selection committee as well. And then I work with students once they're on campus. So many hats, but it makes the job interesting and fun. And I love talking with prospective students at any stage in their journey toward optometry school.
Great. Well, we're excited that you're here today. Can you just start out a little bit by just talking about SEO a little bit, just kind of your class size, your campus. I know you guys are have a really diverse student body from all over the country. So just a little bit about that and whatever you want to share about the school.
Awesome. Yeah, I could talk about SEO for days. So if I start rambling, please feel free to interject. But yeah, so SEO is in Memphis, Tennessee. I personally have been in Memphis for about 5 years now, which might be why you don't detect that much of a Southern accent from me, more of the Midwestern accent for sure, especially when I start talking about classes. So we're here in Memphis, and we have a class size, or rather a campus population size of about 530. I think one of the things that makes SEO unique is that we are only optometry. We are a single purpose school. So all of the students who are enrolled here at SEO are here to study optometry and to become a doctor of optometry. So we offer the Doctor of Optometry degree as the outcome of the 4-year educational program here. We are in Memphis, which is a very diverse city. So we serve a very diverse community, which is one of the things that I think is great about SEO. Our students get to interact when they go through the clinical portion of the education with all sorts of different people from many different backgrounds. We have a large clinic that our faculty and students serve in that sees about 60,000 patients every year. Wow. So it's pretty significant, all types of different people. And not only is the diversity there in the patient base, but like you said, that there we have quite a bit of diversity in the student population as well. We love to get students from all over the country, from all sorts of different backgrounds. And we're oftentimes one of the schools that has the most states represented. So I think right now we have something like 47 or 48 different states represented. So they come from all over the place. So you hear all sorts of different accents like mine here at SEO, which again makes it a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, so that was one thing when I visited the clinic. I mean, it's huge and it was packed with people. So when do your students start getting opportunities to work in the clinic?
Yeah, great question. So we're definitely a very clinically oriented school, clinically oriented hands-on program. We want students to see as many different types of patients as possible over the 4 years. They don't start out in the clinic in the first year, although the first year is pretty hands-on in a lab environment. Students in day one start learning how to do procedures, working with equipment, but their patients are their peers, their fellow classmates. It's in the second year that they start doing some limited patient encounters, is what we call them. So they get into the clinic to do some shadowing, but they also get out into the Shelby County community. So they start doing some school screenings with the kids in the school district. But it's really in the third year that they're actively participating in clinical experiences as kind of the first doctor that the patient sees. So they spend a lot of time in the clinic as a third year student. And then the fourth year, the final year of the program, they do internships and externships, which could be anywhere across the country, but it's working at a real optometric practice for that year.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the curriculum? Like what is it like? What types of courses are they doing in, first and second year?
Yeah, absolutely. So the curriculum, it's a lot of sciences, as you can imagine. It's very didactic in the first year. So the students are doing 24, 25 credit hours in that first year, a lot of basic sciences. Anatomy and physiology is a good example. They do a lot of different vision science courses. So they're doing didactic classes, and then they're doing some hands-on labs, as I mentioned already, in the first year. And so they switch in the second year, and they focus a lot more on vision science rather than overall kind of systemic health and general classes. But yes, very science-based, very, very human biology based as well.
So let's just talk a little bit about optometry in general as a career path and sort of what the outlook is like, and practice locations. Where do most of your students end up practicing? Just general stuff like that.
Sure. So optometry offers a variety of different career opportunities. I think when a lot of people vision optometrists doing their daily work, you think about better one, better two. You get your prescription for glasses or contacts, and you get those and you're on your way. But optometrists do quite a bit more than that. They are helping patients to correct vision deficiencies using glasses, using contact lenses, but optometrists can do a lot more than just that. They help with vision health and eye health, and also systemic health. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can learn about a patient's health through the eye. I thought it was really interesting when I first learned or heard someone say that by looking through the eye, it's the only opportunity to see inside a human body, or to see live blood vessels without cutting the patient open, which I think is really interesting. So you can detect things like high blood pressure, diabetes through the eye, and sometimes that's how patients are learning they have those conditions, is from their optometrists. So optometrists do quite a bit. There's some subspecialty areas. So for optometrists that are really interested in working with kids, they can work in pediatrics or vision therapy. There's ocular disease, low vision, specialty contact lens. So there's a lot of different sort of subspecialty areas in which optometrists can sort of focus their efforts. A lot of optometrists work in private practice. Solo private practice is the most common mode, but group practice is becoming more common too. So for students who have an interest in entrepreneurship and business alongside science and healthcare, optometry can be pretty cool because you can own your own business and sort of flex those business skills as you're also working in patient care. Optometrists work all across the country. Optometrists are the primary providers for eye and vision healthcare. And I think the statistic is still true that about 85% of vision care is provided by optometrists in this country. Across rural environments and city environments, of course, and the growth rate is strong. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts about 10% growth in career opportunities for optometrists over the next 10 years, which is pretty significant. It's about 5% higher than the average across all industries. So good opportunities for sure.
Yeah. Do students get do you teach them like how to open a practice? I mean, are there practice classes that they take to prepare them?
Definitely, yeah. Practice management is part of the curriculum. So students take practice management classes. There are seminars, there are speakers brought in. For students who are really interested in private practice, there's a private practice club that does a lot of networking and outreach and learning about those opportunities. We also have the Hayes Center for Practice Excellence, which is kind of like our career services office, but they do quite a bit more. And they counsel students who are in their first year and beyond, all the way through graduation. And as alum, students who are interested in opening up their own practice to create a business plan, to review contracts, do all sorts of things to help them be successful in their private practice endeavors.
Okay. So, I mean, you've sort of touched on this, but if a student's trying to decide where, which optometry school to choose, what do you say is the reason why they should choose Southern?
Yeah, there are a lot of good schools out there. We definitely want students to find the program where they feel like they will thrive and be most successful and best fit. But we do think that there are a lot of great reasons to think about SCO. One of them being the fact that we're single purpose, so we're very optometry focused and driven, which means when students are in class, even if it's a basic anatomy class, the professors are able to teach to what from that class the students need to know once they get in an optometric clinical environment. It means their classmates are all optometrist students themselves, so they're going through more or less the same kind of things at the same time. They're taking exams at the same time, they're taking boards at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that lends itself to a pretty supportive campus community and campus vibe. It's not extremely competitive here. The students are all pretty supportive of one another. All of the faculty, except for one, are doctors of optometry themselves. So they've been through optometry school, they've passed boards, they've done a residency, they practice in the clinic, so they can teach a lot of relevance to what it means to, in their coursework, apply that to an optometric setting. So being single purpose, I think, is pretty big for us. We're very clinically oriented, I already said. So our students have about 3,000 unique patient encounters by the time that they graduate, which is pretty significant. I think the diversity of the community, which again, I've already mentioned. And then I sort of alluded to the fact that we have a pretty supportive campus environment. So one of the other big things that we hear often from students that really draws them to SCO is just the campus culture. It's very family oriented. It's very warm and welcoming. I think there are a lot of reasons that is, but we are in the South. There's that Southern hospitality that I first experienced 5 years ago, which is a real thing. Everybody's just so friendly. Everybody wants our students to succeed. And I think our students really feel that even when they come just for a tour or for their interview. That's what I like to think, at least.
Yeah. So obviously we're in Louisiana, and so we don't have an optometry school here, but I know Southern is one of our top schools for our students. But can you talk a little bit about the, I don't know if scholarship is the right word, but Louisiana resident waiver that you guys offer there, and how that works, and how do students get plugged into that?
Yeah, definitely. So we're a private school, which means we don't have in-state or out-of-state tuition. But we do have relationships with a number of states that allows us to subsidize tuition for students from that state. And Louisiana is one of them, which is great. So we have a contract with the state of Louisiana, and Louisiana provides us with money that we can forward on to the student to subsidize their tuition. Now, it is limited in nature, so Louisiana doesn't give us a blank check that we can say, okay, we have 18 students this year, let's give money to all 18 students. We wish that's how it was, but it is a definitive amount. So there's a limited number of what we call contract seats, or spots in the class that students from Louisiana are eligible to get that funding. Sometimes it can be competitive, but generally it's not so competitive from Louisiana that we have way more applicants than we do spots. So generally, there are quite a few spots available for the number of applicants we get from Louisiana. The nice thing is the Louisiana contract seat reduces the tuition by about half. So our tuition right now is about $40,000 a year. So for students from Louisiana that get that contract seat, the tuition is only about $20,000 a year, which is awesome. And there are also scholarship opportunities on top of that. We have the Frank Scholarship, which is funded by a really generous donor. And so students who get the Louisiana contract seat are also eligible to receive an additional $3,000 scholarship on top of that. So yeah, there's some good funding opportunities for sure for students from Louisiana.
So is there an application that you do to get the contract seats, or how does that work?
So we look at the student's application to the program when we're considering for contract seats. So there's no separate application. We would just consider them for contract seats as we're also considering them for acceptance to the program, which means one of the biggest things to know about applying to optometry school, or at least to SCO, is that we do rolling admission. So our admission cycle, starts about a year in advance of when the students would begin the program in the fall. We start accepting applications around July 1 of the year before. And so we do rolling admissions, which means we start reviewing applications right away. We start interviewing really quickly thereafter. Interviews start at the end of July. And then our cycle wraps up on March 1st. But by March 1st, there's no guarantee that we're going to have spots available in the class or that we're going to have contract seats available. So we always recommend, especially to students who are trying to get a contract seat, that they apply early on in the cycle.
How many students do you take each year?
About 136.
Okay. And so what are you looking for, like in the application packet? What does SCO sort of anticipate that students have in their application, or what types of things are you looking to see from a student?
Sure, yeah. So I usually, when I'm talking to someone who wants to know about competitiveness, break it down into a few different elements. First and foremost, we're looking for strong academics. We're recruiting for a very intensive doctorate level degree program. So we want to find students who are academically prepared and prepared for success in the program. Students who aren't going to, waste the investment and time and energy to complete the 4 years and to pass boards, etc. So when we're talking about academics, we're looking at a few different things. We're looking at the students, first and foremost, their GPA in undergraduate or graduate coursework. How did they do as an undergrad student? How did they do from semester to semester? What were their credit loads like? Did they try and challenge themselves with some heavier credit loads, or did they, skate by, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, with only 12 credits each semester? We look to see their progression. So did they, increase their GPA semester to semester? Did it go down from first to fourth year? What did they study? Did they do extracurriculars on top of their academic coursework schedule? Did they do any leadership experiences? So GPA and academic coursework is really important. We also have entrance exams. We have an entrance exam in the field called the Optometry Admissions Test, the OAT or the OAT. And things change in the profession, and within the last few years, entrance exam requirements have changed broadly across the field, where we all used to require the OAT, but some schools are going in different directions. At SCO, we strongly recommend and prefer that candidates take the OAT. In some cases, we will look at GRE or MCAT scores. It's kind of case by case. I won't really get into the nitty gritty. Just know that we recommend the OAT, and a strong OAT score is going to make for a stronger application. So academics is probably the first and most important bucket, but another bucket would be exposure to the field of optometry. We want to find students who are really passionate, who are going to really jump in and be contributors to the profession. So we like to see some sort of exposure, whether it be shadowing in the field, going and visiting an optometric practice and shadowing a doctor for a day or two, or work experience or internship experience, some kind of exposure to the field. Generally, we recommend at least 30 to 45 hours of shadowing or exposure. And the more different types of practices an applicant can see, the better, because there is quite a bit of diversity in how one practice, what they might focus on, what kind of technology they might have, et cetera, compared to even the practice down the road. And then the last bucket I'd say is just professionalism. It's a professional school. We are looking for students who are going to be professionals. So we're looking at communication skills, again, leadership skills, how they interact with us. Do we see them as someone who would be good with patients ultimately? So those are the three big things we're looking at.
Okay. So so you mentioned the interviews. What is an interview like at SCO? Are you still doing virtual? What's going on with interviewing with you guys?
We like to keep it fun. Right now we are actually doing majority in person. So we were doing some virtuals during the height of the pandemic. We're transitioning back to more in person, which we love and we really think benefits the students to be able to come to campus, see our clinical facilities, meet students, meet professors, and get a feel for the campus environment. So probably I'd say about 90% of our interviews are in person. It's a full day. The formal interview is a one-on-one conversation with a faculty member, and it's closed file. So the faculty member doesn't know anything about the applicant other than their name and their home state, which hopefully leads to a really unbiased, sort of genuine conversation where the applicant can really help the professor to get to know who they are, why they're here, what interests them in optometry. And then we do a whole lot of other stuff to help the applicant get to know us, a tour of campus, a tour of Memphis, a meeting with an admissions officer to talk about the admissions process and go over prereqs and things like that. We talk about financial aid, we talk about housing in Memphis, and that's what fills up the rest of the day.
So is there assistance for students, like for housing and things like that, when they are moving to Memphis for school? You guys have an office to help them?
Yeah, the office is our office,
Yeah.
but yeah, we do a lot to help students who are getting ready to make the move, because probably 98% of our campus community are students from outside of Memphis. So most are making the move. So we have resources for students and opportunities for them to network with other students in the incoming class to find a roommate, which is something that we recommend for multiple roommates. We give a lot of information about housing in Memphis because we don't have dorms here. We just don't really have a strong demand. Since we're all professional level students, they're kind of over the dorm life by this stage, which means students get a lot of opportunity to choose the type of area they want to live in, to rent or to buy or whatever they think suits them best. They have that flexibility and that choice, but we give a ton of information to help them make that decision.
Okay. So we have in the last 5 minutes or so, I'm going to see if anybody who's joining us have questions that you want to ask. You can unmute yourself, or you can type something in the chat box. So feel free to ask any questions, or Matt, if you have something.
I was just going to ask when so a student gets accepted, they graduate in May. So when do y'all start y'all's academic year, and when will they need to move to Memphis by?
Mm-hmm. So everybody starts in the fall, around late August, August 28th, 29th, 30th. So that gives anyone who's graduating in May a nice summer break before they have to make the move to Memphis. We do have some students that take gap years and that sort of thing, and that's not frowned upon. But yes, everybody starts in the fall semester.
Okay, we have a question. It says, is the school predominantly clinical practice, or is there research opportunities as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we are the first to say that we're very clinically oriented. We want to produce great clinicians, students who are going to go out and work really closely with patients. We do have research opportunities, though. We have a summer research program in particular that a lot of students participate in. And those who are really interested in research can also find doctors who are doing things that interest them and work alongside the doctors doing some research stuff.
Okay. So when people ask you, for advice, if somebody's interested in optometry, what's your go-to advice that you like to give to students?
Yeah. First and foremost is to get out there and shadow. Hopefully students are hearing this from the other, you did 13 other episodes of this podcast probably about other professions and so forth. And hopefully by now that they've heard that if you're interested in healthcare, shadowing is one of the best things that you can do to really get a sense for what particular profession, what a doctor does day in and day out, and get a sense of whether that's what you see yourself doing. And that's what we hear from a lot of students who ultimately end up in optometry as to what made their decision. They had a profound experience where they were shadowing a doctor, and the doctor did something to help the patient see better, and it transformed the patient's life and transformed the student's opinion about the profession. And certainly I'm sure the opposite experience can happen, but we have a lot of students who are really moved by being able to see what optometrists can do day in and day out. And it's the best way you can get a sense of what the profession really entails. So get out there and shadow in different types of modalities, shadow different types of doctors would be the first thing. And then the other thing I would say is just to get involved. Whatever stage you're at, and presumably undergraduate studies, get out there and get involved. Do something that you're interested in, that you're passionate about. We love to see extracurriculars on students' resumes, and it doesn't have to be pre-health or pre-optometry club. It could be intramural sports. It could be involvement in a church community. It could be volunteering, whatever you're passionate about, pursue, because it says to us that you take time out of your day to pursue and dedicate to your passions. That you can balance a rigorous schedule, but it's some, when something's important to you, invest time and energy in it. So those are the two big things that I like to tell undergraduate students in particular.
Do you guys have like opportunities for students to visit campus, like open houses, things like that? Can you just talk a little bit about those types of opportunities?
We would love to have all of your students come up and visit us here in Memphis. Word on the street is there's some pretty good barbecue here and a great music scene too. We are always happy to welcome prospective students for individual tours based on whatever their schedule allows. We do it during our normal business hours, is one caveat. We do have a Saturday visit program called Discover Optometry that happens biannually. It will happen in the spring this year, which is a day-long program where you get to see campus and also hear and learn more about the profession. And then we do webinars ourselves. So for prospective students, all sorts of different topics, whether it be about optometry admissions test prep, interview prep, what a day in the life of an optometry student looks like, curriculum questions, all sorts of good stuff. So if your students want to keep in touch with us and hear about these events, then they can pop on and fill out our inquiry form, which is explore.sco.edu. Pretty simple link.
Okay, so that was going to be my next, my final question there. How do people get in touch with you? Do you have what's the website, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you're always welcome to email or call me. I love talking with students. But it's the student services office that my department is within, which you would want to look for. But we have a great admissions website, sco.edu/admissions, with all sorts of information. You can find all of our contact information there.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us today, Rebecca. We really appreciate it. I know that we send you students every year, and our students have a great experience there with you guys in Memphis. So we appreciate the partnership, and I'll just let you have a final word if you want to say anything in closing.
Well, thank you so much. I love the opportunity to be here. Hopefully this is helpful, and hopefully those of you watching this get a fact or two out of this that helps. Reach out anytime if you have questions about optometry or admissions. We're here to help.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.